Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Tianlu with you on this Thursday, August 27th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, rescue efforts are underway after a devastating flash flood and mudslide struck the China-Nepal border area. The US president says mines in the Strait of Hormuz have been cleared, while Tehran insists the waterway will remain shut unless Washington fulfills its commitments. And China's east coast is bracing for another typhoon. In business, profits of China's major industrial firms increased over 17% in the first 7 months. In sports, Zheng Qinwen and 2 other Chinese players have advanced in the US Open qualifying. In culture and entertainment, China Media Group showcases its latest film and TV productions in Cairo. Now checking today's top stories. Rescue efforts are underway after a mudslide struck a border port in southwest China. The mudslide hit Jirong port in Xizang on Wednesday morning. The port serves as a key trade and communication corridor linking China with South Asia. The disaster caused heavy casualties along the China-Nepal border, with hundreds of people killed and thousands of others missing in the two countries as of late Thursday. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has arrived at Jirong County to oversee disaster relief operations. Earlier, China's first group of 141 rescuers arrived at the port with specialized gear for search and rescue operations. A China search and rescue team consisting of over 100 rescue personnel and experts also landed at Dingri County on Thursday. Rescuer Li Zhuo explained more details about their operations.
We may need to conduct a preliminary detection of the site using equipment such as drones or ground-penetrating radar to carry out a search, identify the locations where life signs are detected, and mark them accordingly. Once the points are identified, we will focus our efforts on targeted rescue operations at those key positions. During the rescue process, we may reconfirm the suspected points for further search, rescue, and excavation.
The first deployment of 2 helicopters from the Xizang Military Command has also arrived at Jirong Port. They will survey the quick-hit areas and map out rescue routes into the disaster zone. Geological experts from the Ministry of Emergency Management say they are preparing for the worst, such as the possible collapse of a newly formed barrier lake. The mudslide has severely damaged the roads, communications, and power infrastructure. The top priority of the rescue teams is to reach the affected area. Nepal has stepped up its disaster response, but the massive scale of damage near the border is complicating rescue work. Kalyan Raj Sharma reports from Kathmandu.
The government has deployed all the military and armed police and all the local people and doing, but due to the landslide, at least 40-kilometer road has been damaged, and all the people living in the river bank is very hard to rescue, and trying to find and transportation is very big challenging, and all the helicopters what we have been using, but it's a very, very big disaster, so it's very hard to do, but it's still government and local people and all the authorities are focusing for the rescue and trying to it is going from the border to the southern part of Nepal. So river is going all the way down, and many down part also finding the dead body and other things. So still rescue is going on 24 hours. All the area is power cut, no electricity, and it's a very terrible situation. It will be very big impact, especially for Nepal. That is the only port, one the major port coming to Nepal. And also for the South Asia, especially for Nepal. And immediately we have big festival called Dasai and daily uses things. So it will be very badly affected. What we are seeing is a certain problem, but it will be long-term problem because 40-kilometer road is damaged and a lot of area is damaged. As we heard that Shillong part, China part also has been damaged very badly. So it's a big problem. I think it will take time to reopen this port.
That was Kalyan Raj Sharma reporting. China has expressed deep condolences to Nepal over the disaster. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian says China is in close coordination with Nepalese authorities.
中方向尼泊尔政府和受灾民众表示诚挚慰问。
China expresses its sincere condolences to the government of Nepal and the people affected by the disaster. China is maintaining close communication and cooperation with Nepal to support joint search and rescue efforts, and will provide emergency assistance based on Nepal's needs. China's rescue efforts treat Chinese and foreign nationals equally. Beijing is also in communication with the embassies of the relevant countries in China and keeping them informed of the latest developments.
The ministry says nearly 100 Chinese nationals remain missing on the Nepalese side, while 260 foreign nationals are unaccounted for in the affected areas in China. The Chinese embassy in Nepal is working with Nepalese authorities to verify the information concerning the missing Chinese nationals. It has also urged the Chinese nationals in affected areas to move to safe ground and take precautions against possible secondary hazards. Condolences are pouring in following the disaster. Among them are messages from the leaders of Brazil, Germany, Canada, and New Zealand, as well as representatives of the UN, the WHO, and the European Commission. All of them have expressed sympathy to the victims, their families, and all those affected by the disaster. Experts say the rescue operation in mudslide hit Xizang faces a variety of difficulties and challenges. Chen Hongqi is a senior geological engineer at the Ministry of Natural Resources. He says the complex terrain and conditions are making rescue operations particularly challenging.
First, there is the question of the original source area, the site of the slope failure, and whether the area is stable. This directly affects the risk of secondary disasters during rescue operations. Second is the water situation. Rescuers need to know the conditions upstream of both the tributary and the main valley and whether they are stable. The third factor is local rainfall. Because this is a high mountain canyon, it is extremely prone to collecting and concentrating water. Fourth, because the terrain is relatively narrow, strict precautions are needed along access routes to guard against the impact of mountain collapses, landslides, and even falling rocks.
That was Chen Hongqi, a senior geological engineer at the Ministry of Natural Resources. Coming up, the US president says mines in the Strait of Hormuz have been cleared, while Tehran insists the waterway will remain shut unless Washington fulfills its commitments.
China's economy is facing pressure at home and abroad. Growth has slowed, while property, local government debt, and weak demand remain challenges. Yet, exports and manufacturing continue to show resilience. So is China's economy really in serious trouble? And with Washington eyeing new tariffs and Brussels tightening scrutiny of Chinese companies, where does Beijing go from here? We look at the fiscal policy options, the room for further stimulus, and the bigger question, what will drive China's next phase of growth? Get them all at this week's Chat Lounge, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on CGTN Radio.
Now it's 8 minutes past the hour. US President Donald Trump says mines have been cleared from the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says the waterway will remain shut until the US fulfills its commitments. Jagruti Davi reports from Washington, D.C.
Well, look, the US is clearly saying that they don't think that Tehran is ready for talks yet. But I think they will be watching how diplomacy unfolds between Iran and Oman. Similar mixed messages from Iran about its willingness to talk, but also its resistance to any US pressure. And I think what Donald Trump's declaration of the destruction of deep sea mines might do is, while allowing more oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, it could have the potential consequence of perhaps limiting the leverage that Iran has in the Strait of Hormuz and perhaps in future negotiations with the United States. But remember, Iran and Oman, they're also talking, and their plan or their conversations have also talked about demining the strait. So it's not clear whether what the US is doing interferes or complements with the diplomatic efforts that are underway on the strait. And everyone is clearly watching how that diplomacy unfolds to see if that really breaks the stalemate in the Strait of Hormuz. The US is hoping that its economic sanctions will do the job to pressure Iran. But Iran is saying that it won't reopen the strait until the US fulfills its commitment under the preliminary deal. Now, military strong-arming hasn't really done anything to persuade Iran. Could sanctions? Well, Iran has said that it's weathered sanctions before and it's going to do so again. And experts are saying that the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz might only happen if there is an agreement that is mutually agreeable to both the United States and Iran. And that is going to be a problem. It will need some compromises on both sides. It's very difficult to see that happening until both adversaries actually start talking to each other.
That was Jagruti Davi reporting. Iran has reached a deal with Oman over a temporary shipping corridor in the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran says the agreement is not permanent and can be revoked at any time. Esin Kivani reports from Tehran.
Iran and Oman have reached a temporary deal on a shipping corridor, but we can't expect traffic in the Strait of Hormuz to return to normal anytime soon. Tehran has made that very clear. This isn't a permanent fix. Deputy Foreign Minister Gharibabadi called this agreement temporary and said Iran could revoke it at any time and any moment. The IRGC spokesperson went even further today. He said that the strait stays closed unless the U.S. accepts Iran's conditions and addresses Tehran's security concerns. He also stressed that Iranian forces control the waterway and no enemy warships are allowed in the Persian Gulf. Mediation efforts are ongoing. Pakistan's Army Chief General Asim Munir just visited Tehran. Qatar's Prime Minister is set to arrive on Thursday, but Iran isn't budging. It's also pushing back against what it calls an illegal southern route set up by the U.S., which Iran says violates the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding. So the Omani deal and diplomacy are separate from the core issue. About a fifth of world's oil used to pass through this strait. Traffic has already dropped sharply. Any real improvement depends on Washington making the next move. So for now, the strait remains a pressure point, and that seems unlikely to change soon.
That was Esin Kivani in Tehran. The Syrian Democratic Forces has announced dissolution, a significant step in the group's integration into Syrian state institutions. The move aims to strengthen the Syrian government's control over the country's northeast. Hida Kazwini reports from Damascus.
The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, once the main US-backed partner in the fight against ISIS, has announced its disbandment and merger into the Syrian army and security forces. At the presidential palace in Damascus, SDF commander Mazloum Abdi announced on Tuesday evening the dissolution of the organization.
We announced today the end of the mission of the Syrian Democratic Forces and announce with full responsibility its dissolution as an independent military force. We want this day to mark a transition from the battlefields to fields of construction.
Abdi said the announcement followed the completion of the process of integrating SDF units into Syria's newly formed military. The SDF entered the integration talks from a significantly weak position after Damascus' January offensive stripped it of most of the territory it had control at the start of the year, including the strategic Arab-majority areas of Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor.
This decision will consolidate the unity and the sovereignty of Syria, and this will happen as a result of giving up arms, the engagement of the previously conflicting parties into a political path, the integration into the government state institutions, and eventually bringing all Syrian territories under the control of the Syrian state.
But the dissolution of the SDF does not mean Damascus has resolved all the outstanding issues in the northeast. The SDF's dissolution and integration into the Syrian state brings Damascus closer to ending a decade of wartime fragmentation. But the success of that process will depend on whether military integration can also produce a durable political settlement in the northeast.
That was Hida Kazwini reporting. The SDF's military presence has long been a major point of contention for Turkey. Mihal Bardavid reports from Istanbul.
For Turkey, the dissolution of the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, marks a significant development. Ankara considers the YPG a terrorist organization linked to the PKK and carried out several cross-border military operations in northern Syria against the group. SDF commander Mazlum Abdi announced the dissolution of the group as an independent military force at the presidential palace on Tuesday, following an agreement reached in January between the SDF and Damascus on integrating its forces into the Syrian army. The two sides had also agreed on the recognition of Kurdish cultural, civil, and educational rights in Syria.
If unity can be achieved among our neighbors within the framework of a nation state, then of course this would also contribute to Turkey's security. How realistic this will be on the ground remains to be monitored and assessed.
The development also comes as Turkey pursues a peace process with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, which is designated as a terrorist organization by Ankara, the US, and the EU. Ankara has welcomed the SDF's dissolution, saying it could strengthen Syria's unity. Turkey has long maintained that the People's Defense Unit's, or YPG's, presence along its southern border poses a threat to its national security.
When a terrorist attack against Turkey came from Syria or Iraq, Turkey had difficulty identifying a counterpart to address. So, from this perspective, this will contribute to Turkey's security. Turkey will now deal with Syria's central government because diplomacy takes place between states and between foreign ministries. This should not be viewed solely as a military and security issue. From a broader strategic perspective, it will of course make a positive contribution to Turkey's security.
The U.S. welcomed the announcement. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey Tom Barrack said the dissolution offered Syrians a renewed opportunity to shape their shared future.
That was Michal Bardovit reporting. Coming up, China's east coast is bracing for another typhoon.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Become more eco-conscious and take action to protect our planet.
Now it's 18 minutes past the hour. As Typhoon Saudel approaches the eastern coast of China, Fujian province has upgraded its typhoon emergency response. Heavy rain has affected parts of its coastal areas since Sunday, while fishing boats in Ningde are rushing back to port and unloading their catches as the fishing season gets underway. Zhao Shenshuan has more.
At Sansha Central Fishing Port, the largest fishing port in Xiapu County, Ningde, fishing boats were seen returning one after the other after wrapping up operations at sea. At the dock, fishermen used conveyor belts to upload their catches, which were then packed and loaded onto trucks.
We received the typhoon warning while we were at sea, so we hauled in our nets early and headed back. Now we're racing against time to unload the fish, and once that's done, we'll go ashore as required and take shelter from the typhoon.
The freshly packed catches were quickly transported to seafood markets for sale. Xiapu had 669 fishing boats operating at sea, and all have now returned to nearby ports for shelter. Local marine and fisheries authorities are also using a vessel monitoring system to track fishing boats in real time.
With the fishing season now underway, many boats had already headed out to sea. We are continuously tracking their locations and return progress to make sure all fishing boats are back in port and everyone on board is ashore by 6 p.m. on August 25th.
Ningde is a major aquaculture area in Fujian. Since Tuesday, local authorities have been reinforcing fish farms and relocating offshore structures. In Qiulin village, fishermen and workers remove wind power equipment and tow temporary offshore structures to sheltered anchorages.
Ahead of the typhoon, stronger winds at sea can cause wind turbine blades to overspeed or even break apart. We have removed all 6 offshore wind turbines in advance to prevent damage. We have also disconnected all cable joints to ensure electrical safety on the fish farms during the typhoon.
Local Coast Guard authorities have also stepped up checks in key waters, including fishing grounds and sheltered anchorages. More than 10,000 workers on aquaculture fish farms across Ningde have all been evacuated ashore, while 61,607 residents have been relocated.
That was Zhao Shenshuan reporting. Cotton growers in Uzbekistan are turning to Chinese technology to help boost production while using significantly less water. From irrigation and agricultural machinery to processing, Chinese expertise is being introduced across the cotton production chain. Alyosha Milenkovic has more.
This may be the most beautiful sound in the desert, the sound of water. Here in southern Uzbekistan, every drop matters, especially for a water-demanding crop like cotton. And increasingly, farmers here are turning to Chinese drip irrigation technology to make those drops go further.
We expect to yield up to 9 tons of cotton per hectare. Our cotton is developing well. As you can see, around 50% of the cotton has already opened. I have been working with this drip irrigation system for 2 years. The water savings from using this system are very significant.
Water arriving through canal is collected in this huge basin, then mixed with fertilizer and pumped through drip lines directly to the plants. Around 5,000 hectares in this area are already covered by the system. It reduces water losses while allowing farmers to control precisely how much water and nutrition their cotton receives. But Chinese technology here doesn't stop at the edge of the field. In nearby town of Karshi, tractors, cotton planters and combine harvesters are lined up in a new assembly facility expected to begin production in 2 months.
Our company has been deeply rooted in China for many years and is well received by a wide range of users. So we are bringing our most advanced technology to participate in Uzbekistan's agricultural modernization drive. We aim to support the local community with our latest technology.
And at the other end of the production chain, another Chinese-owned facility is preparing to process the cotton harvested from these fields. Its machinery is already installed, and the factory is expected to open in November and provide jobs for up to 100 local workers.
From advanced agricultural machinery and precision drip irrigation to modern processing facilities, China's experience and expertise in cotton production are being put into practice right here in Uzbekistan, spanning almost every stage of the production chain.
Now was Alyosha Milenkovic reporting. Canada has struck back after the US imposed 50% tariffs on Canadian goods following a breakdown in negotiations. No new talks have been scheduled between the two sides. The Canadian government has rolled out aid measures to support local businesses and workers affected by the trade war. Walter Morris reports from Washington, D.C.
In an interview on Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump repeated many of his previous claims. He says Canada has been taking advantage of the United States for decades, and he wants to teach them a lesson. He also told radio host Glenn Beck that he's seriously considering renaming Lake Ontario. That interview comes one day after Canadian officials announced new dollar-for-dollar reciprocal tariffs on U.S. imports. On September 8th, Canada will impose retaliatory tariffs on about $20 billion worth of American goods. The Canadian finance minister says the new fees will target more than 700 U.S.-made products. In addition to the existing counter tariffs on industrial goods, the new tariffs will impact many consumer items like seafood, dairy, clothing, cosmetics, and some paper products. The current tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum imports will double from 25% to 50%. During a press conference Tuesday, Canadian officials said the counter tariffs are designed to protect Canada's industries and workers. Of course, that announcement came days after trade negotiations broke down between the United States and Canada. Saturday, Trump imposed new 50% tariffs on $20 billion worth of Canadian imports. Monday, he announced that he'll raise tariffs to 50% on cars, trucks, auto parts, and steel from Canada starting January 1st. During the interview with Glenn Beck Wednesday, Trump once again called Canada, quote, one of the worst countries in the world to deal with. He also downplayed the negative impacts of the new tariffs on American consumers. And Canadian officials say the government has created a support package with billions of dollars for small businesses and workers who will be hurt by the new tariffs.
That was Walter Morris reporting. The trade war between Canada and the US has increasingly forced consumers in Canada away from American products. Polls show a growing number of Canadians are now holding an unfavorable view of the US. Karina Huber sent this report from Montreal.
When Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced reciprocal tariffs against the United States, he acknowledged that Canadians will feel some pain.
Let me be clear. We take this step reluctantly. Reluctantly because we recognize that some of these measures will raise costs and reduce choice for Canadians.
Polls indicate that Canadians largely back Carney's approach. A survey by Angus Reid Institute finds that 76% of Canadians support Carney's decision to scrap trade negotiations with the United States, and roughly 60% support the launch of reciprocal tariffs against the U.S. on September 8th.
Well, I'm with Mark Carney on this. We would never become the 51st state. Simple as that.
Trump's repeated threat to turn Canada into America's 51st state and his many references to Canada's prime minister as a governor has deeply offended many Canadians who worry about their sovereignty.
I think at some level, some very deep level, people understand that if we don't fight back, we'll lose our sovereignty, because what the Trump administration was asking for is control over our critical minerals, dictating with whom we can trade. Obviously, they mean China. And so I think that was a little too much for people. And so I think they're willing to take some pain.
Trump's latest threat to change Lake Ontario's name to Lake America was also a step too far for many Canadians.
It's meaningless. It's just more hyperbole and more of an irritant for the Canadian people.
Even before these latest trade talks broke down, Canadians were already rejecting Trump with their wallets.
We're doing the best we can to buy Canadian products. Unfortunately, tourism, we don't go there anymore, like a lot of us. There's other places.
Travel from Canada to the U.S. fell by about 25% last year, wiping out $2.3 billion U.S. dollars in revenue for the U.S. tourism industry. Canadians have also stopped purchasing U.S. alcohol, a major sticking point for the Trump administration, after a majority of provinces enacted bans on American liquor, wine, and beer. That has hit the U.S. industry hard. Canada was the U.S. wine industry's biggest export market. The Wine Institute estimates that the Canadian bans accounted for 81% of the decline in total U.S. wine export revenue worldwide in 2025. For U.S. distilleries, exports to Canada were down roughly 70%. Karagesian says the relationship between the two countries has been frayed largely because of Trump's rhetoric and actions on trade. But the anger is now spilling over to person-to-person relationships as well.
I think most Canadians think that most Americans are fundamentally decent people. So I'm going to preface it with that. But at the same time, I do think that it is fair for Canadians to blame Americans to some extent. I mean, they voted Trump in twice.
Polls indicate that almost half of Canadians now have an unfavorable view of Americans. Whether those attitudes and the spending and travel habits that have come along with them remain once the Trump administration ends is anyone's guess. But for now, the trade war is putting pressure on a generations-long relationship that has been defined by an extraordinarily close bond between neighbors.
That was Karina Huber in Montreal. Now it's 29 minutes past the hour, checking the forecast before the break. Beijing will have light rain tonight and tomorrow. The low is 21 and it's up to 24 on Friday. Shanghai will see light rain tonight and tomorrow with a low of 28 and a high of 32. Chongqing will have light rain tonight, tomorrow moderate rain with a low of 28 and a high of 36. Nanchang will be clear tonight, tomorrow thunder showers with a low of 28 and a high of 34. Lhasa will have showers tonight, easing to light tomorrow with a low of 12 and a high of 23. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, rescue efforts are underway after a devastating flash flood and mudslide struck the China-Nepal border area. The US president says mines in the Strait of Hormuz have been cleared, while Tehran insists the waterway will remain shut unless Washington fulfills its commitments. Tian Lu with you. Stay with here on the Beijing Hour.
The transition to a greener future is no longer a distant goal. It's happening now. In power plants, factories, farms, and cities across China. As the world grapples with climate change, energy security, and the growing demand for electricity, China is searching for new ways to cut emissions while keeping its economy moving. Across the country, our reporters visit renewable energy hubs, industrial centers, and agricultural communities to see what that transformation looks like in practice. Through first-hand stories and on-the-ground reporting, we explore the opportunities, the challenges, and the ideas shaping China's green transition. Listen to China's Green Code, Rewriting the Rules of Growth, a special series from Climate Watch, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Tian Lu with you on this Thursday. Still to come, in business, profits of China's major industrial firms increased over 17% in the first 7 months. In sports, Zheng Qingwen and 2 other Chinese players have advanced in the US Open qualifying. In culture and entertainment, China Media Group showcases its latest film and TV productions in Cairo. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @cgtnradio. You're also welcome to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Beyond Beijing, for the world's biggest stories, along with sharp insights and exclusive analysis. But first, checking today's headlines. Rescue efforts are underway after a mudslide struck a border port in southwest China. The mudslide hit Jirong Port in Xizang on Wednesday morning. The port serves as a key trade and communication corridor linking China with South Asia. The disaster caused heavy casualties along the China-Nepal border, with hundreds of people killed and thousands of others missing in the two countries as of late Thursday. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has arrived at Jirong County to oversee disaster relief operations. Earlier, China's first group of 141 rescuers arrived at the port with specialized gear for search and rescue operations. A China search and rescue team consisting of over 100 rescue personnel and experts also landed at Ding'er County on Thursday. The first deployment of 2 helicopters from the Xizang Military Command has also arrived at Jirong Port. They will survey the quake-hit areas and map out rescue routes into the disaster zone. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says nearly 100 Chinese nationals remain missing on the Nepalese side after a mudslide struck a port along the China-Nepal border in Xizang Autonomous Region. The Chinese embassy in Nepal is working with Nepalese authorities to verify the information. It has also urged the Chinese nationals in affected areas to move to safe ground and take precautions against possible secondary hazards. A Foreign Ministry spokesperson says the embassy remains available around the clock and will provide assistance to those in need. Lin Jian says China and Nepal are maintaining close communication and coordinating search and rescue efforts. China is also ready to provide emergency assistance based on Nepal's needs. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says 260 foreign nationals remain unaccounted for in the affected areas of Xizang in southwest China. The ministry stresses that all lives are valued equally regardless of nationality in the rescue efforts. China is also communicating with related foreign embassies in the country to keep them informed of the situation. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called on China and the US to remove disruptions and overcome obstacles to high-level bilateral exchanges. He made remarks while meeting with US Ambassador to China David Perdue in Beijing. Wang said the two countries should implement important consensus reached by the two heads of state and push bilateral ties toward a stable, sound, and sustainable direction. Perdue expressed a willingness to build a constructive US-China relationship of strategic stability. He also extended condolences over the mudslide that struck Xizan on Wednesday. The president of the National Council of Austria will pay a visit to China. Walter Rosenkranz will lead a delegation to visit China from Saturday to Friday. The trip comes at the invitation of China's top legislator Zhao Leji. Colombia's Disaster Risk Agency said Wednesday that 18 wildfires remain active as El Niño conditions fuel dry weather. The hardest hit area in Tolima, where more than 20,000 hectares have burned during 26 days of wildfire emergencies. Interior Minister Rodrigo Lara said the fires intensified overnight, threatening homes and power transmission towers. Firefighters, soldiers, police and local residents are working to contain the blazes. Authorities have also arrested 2 people over suspected criminal activity linked to the fires. Farmers have reported heavy losses to lemon and avocado crops. The fires began in early August, with El Niño conditions expected to last until March 2027. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says UN peace operations must adapt to a rapidly changing global security landscape. He says geopolitical power is becoming more spread out, while new centers of influence and new areas of conflict are emerging.
Geopolitics is in flux. Power is more diffuse and worldviews are more diverse. New poles of influence are emerging and new lines of contestation are taking shape. We are witnessing a resurgence of conflict between states and an intensification of internal conflicts, now increasingly internationalized, more protected and harder to resolve.
Guterres is calling for a reset in how the United Nations approaches peace operations. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in business. Profits of China's major industrial firms increased over 17% in the first 7 months.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
Now it's 36 minutes past the hour. Turning to business. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed higher on Thursday. The Shanghai Composite was up over 1%. The Shenzhen Component gained 1.5%. Non-metal material and forestry shares led the gainers. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index lost over 0.3%. Japan's Nikkei declined 0.2%. Profits of China's major industrial firms increased 17.6% on a yearly basis during the first 7 months of the year. These industrial firms, with an annual main business revenue of at least 20 million yuan, or about $3 million, saw their combined profits reach almost 4.6 trillion yuan during the period. The National Bureau of Statistics attributed the relatively fast profit growth to steady industrial production and the rapid expansion of new growth drivers. The Bureau identified the electronics sector as the main pillar, with profits surging 110% and contributing 9.3 points to overall industrial profit growth. High-tech manufacturing followed closely, with profits rising over 50% and adding 9.6 points to overall growth. The computer, communications and other electronic equipment manufacturing sector saw profits surge 110%. Mining industry profits jumped nearly 35% to 666 billion yuan. Non-ferrous metal smelting and rolling processing jumped almost 92%. In July alone, profits of major industrial firms grew 11.2%. For more, Michael Wang spoke with Zhou Mi, a senior research fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation.
Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Industrial profits rising 17.6% in the first 7 months, while profit margins for these large industrial companies also improving. Dr. Zhou, what do the latest numbers tell you about the underlying performance of China's industrial sector?
Well, the manufacturing and industries are a really important part of China. That is also China's famous for the made in China. So I think that the manufacturing are really the backbones of the China's economy in certain kind of extent. The profits are growing, and also I think that their outputs are growing. I think that is a really good phenomenon. It is not only our proof that all these related stakeholders in the manufacturing are getting stronger, but also it means that there are more abilities to attract more investment in these kind of areas. I think that is definitely a good news. And we can expect that the competitions and also in these manufacturing are getting better. We're not just having many troubles like the evolution or other related problems.
Right. So, Dr. Zhou, if we take a closer look at the numbers, high-tech manufacturing profits in particular at these large industrial firms, they jumped more than 50% in the first 7 months of the year, with particularly strong growth in AI-related industries. To what extent are you seeing new technologies becoming a meaningful driver of industrial profitability?
The high-tech technology is just one of very important priorities for China's economy. So we want to improve the innovation based on the high-tech knowledge. I think that is definitely the government's signals to, and also the policies to encourage the development of these industries. Well, from these numbers, we can already see that these policies have some work on improve its abilities in sustainable development in the manufacturing. I think that is quite an important thing that we have observed from this impact or the policies result. I think from another side, it is really our kind of new issues because the high technology is not just improving the efficiency of the enterprises, but also trying to give a better ecosystem to meet the demand of the market. So the two-way communications from the demand to the supplies are getting better. I think that is definitely a very good things or phenomena we can observe from the manufacturing.
And Dr. Zhou, what do you think will be important to sustaining the momentum that we are seeing in industrial profitability for the months ahead?
Well, in the coming 4 months, I would say that this momentum will still continue, but we need to try to create a better policy environment to have a stable expectation from the market. I think that is also an important thing that we can provide more opportunities for the inward investment. The investors from other countries can also benefit from the high-tech development in the Chinese manufacturing, and we are having a better and more stable supply chains with our trading partners.
That was a senior research fellow Zhou Mi talking about China's industrial profits. Chinese authorities say the country will expand national transportation links and promote smarter, greener mobility during the 15th five-year plan period, covering 2026 to 2030. According to the Transport Ministry, rapid advances in artificial intelligence and other frontier technologies are reshaping the global transportation industry. During the five-year period, China plans to shift the sector's growth model toward structural improvements, smart and digital technologies, and greener development. The ministry says during the previous five-year plan, the country completed 91% of a planned nationwide transportation backbone comprising major road, rail, and waterway corridors. China now has nearly 200,000 kilometers of expressways, more than 50,000 kilometers of high-speed railway lines, and 18,500 kilometers of high-grade inland waterways. 8 of the world's 10 largest ports are also in China. Major projects have produced advances in transportation engineering, including the Shenzhen-Zhongshan Link, a cross-sea transportation corridor in southern China, and the Pinglu Canal in the Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region. The 18th International Exhibition on Transport Technology and Equipment is underway in Beijing under the theme New Era of AI, New Future of Transport. Hosted by the Transport Ministry, the event features exhibition zones on the safety enhancement, digital intelligence upgrading, and green transformation. Leading domestic and international research institutions are showcasing cutting-edge AI-powered transport technologies, including smart logistics, autonomous driving, and new energy vehicles. The exhibition also debuts a collection of innovative products and system solutions. More than 10 side events will be held during the expo to provide a platform for technology exchange and industry collaboration. They include global transport investment and financing matchmaking, Asia-Europe multimodal transport forums, and smart green transport innovation releases. Over 660 teams have competed in the just concluded second World Humanoid Robot Games, up 138% from the inaugural edition last year. Over 2,000 robots from 16 countries took part, breaking multiple records in events including the 400-meter race and high jump. The Games also features scenario-based events testing real-world skills, including housekeeping, emergency rescue, and industrial assembly. At the closing ceremony, the world's first full dataset for humanoid robot competitions was officially released, covering 2,500 hours of real-scene operation data across 12 application scenarios. Organizers say the third edition will take place in August next year, with plans to introduce more application-focused events to the lineup. U.S. tech giant Meta has agreed to pay around $18 billion as part of a landmark legal settlement with multiple U.S. states over failures to protect children from social media addiction. It also agreed to make major changes to its platforms, which the lawsuit claimed were intentionally designed to be addictive. U.S. inflation remained elevated in July, with the Federal Reserve's preferred price gauge rising more than expected, adding to pressure on the central bank to consider raising interest rates later this year. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the personal consumption expenditures price index rose 3.7% last month from a year earlier, compared with the 3.6% increase expected by economists. The core PCE, which excludes more volatile energy and food prices, rose at an annual rate of 3.3%. The PCE tracks changes in the prices of goods and services bought by U.S. households. The index is closely tracked by the Federal Reserve, which uses it to inform its interest rate decisions. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, Zheng Qingwen and two other Chinese players have advanced in the U.S. Open qualifying.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
46 minutes past the hour, turning to sports. Here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Tianlu. We begin with tennis. Olympic champion Zheng Qingwen has defeated Clara Buelle in straight sets to reach the final round of the U.S. Open qualifying. Zheng broke early for a 3-1 lead and cruised through the opening set 6-1. The second set was much tighter. Despite 6 double faults, Zheng delivered on the key points to edge Buelle 7-5 and sealed win. She will face Elina Pridenkina for place in the main draw. It's Zheng's first Grand Slam qualifying appearance since the 2022 Australian Open. Hampered by injuries in recent years, she is now ranked 121st in the world. Yuan Yue has also advanced, moving within one win of the main draw. In the men's qualifying, Bu Yingchuk also reached the final round. The final round winners will secure places in the US Open main draw. Team China has completed a perfect group stage run at the Asian Women's Volleyball Championship, sweeping Chinese Taipei 3-0 in Tianjin to reach the quarterfinals without dropping a set. Head coach Zhao Yong says the team adjusted well throughout the match.
We went into this match with a clear tactical plan, but we lost our rhythm in the opening stages. However, we quickly adjusted to their pace, started putting pressure on them from the serve, and used tenacious defense to lift our overall blocking and backcourt coverage.
Wu Mengjie and Zhuang Yushan led China with 13 points each, while captain Gong Xiangyu added 10. China dominated in attack 40-25 and at the net 11-1 in blocks. After also sweeping Iraq and Iran, China secured the top seed and will face Vietnam in Friday's quarterfinal. The Asian champion will qualify directly for the Los Angeles 2028 Olympics, while the top 3 will earn berths at the 2027 World Championship in the US and Canada. And World Snooker Wuhan Open, Chang Bingyu became the first player into the quarterfinals after beating Ali Carter 5-2. Chang stormed out of the blocks with breaks of 80 and 73 to take the opening 2 frames. He stayed in control to complete a convincing victory. In the evening session, Zhao Xintong raced into a 2-0 lead over Barry Hawkins, only for the Englishman to fight back and level at 2-all. Zhao then reeled off 3 straight frames to seal a 5-2 win. Xiao Guodong rallied from 2-0 down to beat Chris Wakelin 5-3, winning 4 straight frames before closing out the match. In the quarterfinals, Chang faces Judd Trump, Xiao meets Mark Williams, and Zhao takes on Neil Robertson. Ronnie O'Sullivan will play Mark Selby. In football, Kylian Mbappe hit a hat-trick as Jose Mourinho marked his return to the Santiago Bernabeu in style, leading Real Madrid to a commanding 4-1 win over Real Sociedad. Mourinho says he values team contributions over individual achievements from his attackers.
Kylian is an incredible player. He is an absolutely incredible player. Whether it's 60, 50 or 40 goals, I can't say. I prefer 40 with titles over 60 without titles. I prefer 40 with a lot of hard work for the team over 60 while only looking out for himself, as often happens with the attackers.
Mbappe opened the scoring in the 40th minute, but Luka Sucic equalized just 4 minutes later. The France forward restored Madrid's lead shortly after the hour mark. Vinicius Jr. made it 3-1 in the 68th minute before Mbappe completed his treble 10 minutes from time, sealing a dominant win for Mourinho on his Bernabeu return. Manchester City have signed teenage Moroccan midfielder Ayoub Bouadi from Lille in a deal worth €100 million. Lille confirmed Bouadi's departure on a 5-year deal, ending months of speculation over the highly rated youngster's future. Bouadi says he's looking forward to working with his new coach, Enzo Maresca.
I watched Enzo Maresca, who is an amazing coach. I can't wait to be trained by him as soon as possible. Even the team, I saw the really big players. I can't wait to see them in the dressing room, to play with them, to share good moments with them.
The 19-year-old was part of Morocco's 2026 FIFA World Cup squad and impressed in midfield as the Atlas Lions reached the quarterfinals before losing to France. Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes has won the Professional Footballers Association Player of the Year award.
No, it's a very proud moment. Obviously, I'm very thankful for all of those that voted for me. Was a special season individual for me. Obviously, I'm very proud that all the ones that have decided to vote for me was something that I'm very, very grateful.
Fernandes set a new Premier League assists record last season, creating 21 goals to surpass the previous mark held by Thierry Henry and Kevin De Bruyne. The 31-year-old also scored 9 goals as United recovered from a poor start to finish third under Michael Carrick and secure a return to the Champions League.
Thank you very much. That was Yang Guang with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, China Media Group showcases its latest film and TV productions in Cairo.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
Now it's 52 minutes past the hour, turning to culture and entertainment. This year marks the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and Egypt, as well as 70 years of diplomatic ties between China and the Arab world and between China and Africa. A showcase of China Media Group's latest film and TV productions has opened in Cairo, with programs set to air on Egypt's national TV and other major local media outlets through the end of the year. Dong Xue has more.
Nearly 10 high-quality productions from China Media Group are featured in the showcase.
There are many shared values between the Chinese and Egyptian peoples, reflected in our traditions, customs, and outlook on life, so Egyptian viewers can easily relate to these programs. They can serve as a bridge for greater cooperation and exchange between Egypt and China.
China should reach out further to the Arab world. Some 400 million people in the region speak Arabic. Chinese culture can be brought to the region through films and television programs in Arabic. This can help strengthen China's diplomatic soft power.
The showcase follows a similar China Media Group event held in Cairo in 2024. This time, Egyptian elements featured in Chinese productions have once again captured the attention of local audiences, highlighting the cultural connections between the two countries.
China Media Group is producing programs specifically for Egyptian audiences. This will help deepen mutual understanding and bring our two distant countries closer. These programs will help the people of Egypt and China, two ancient civilizations, come even closer together.
Such initiatives are helping strengthen not only bilateral ties, but also people-to-people connections.
Now was Dongxue reporting. A new lineup of Chinese documentaries, dramas, and cultural programs has been launched in Kyrgyzstan, offering Central Asian audiences a closer look at Chinese culture and daily life. Nearly 10 programs produced by China Media Group are being screened in Bishkek and will air through October on Kyrgyzstan's national broadcaster and other regional media outlets. The programs cover topics ranging from traditional Chinese medicine and intangible cultural heritage to food, craftsmanship, and modern design. The initiative builds on a media cooperation agreement between China Media Group and Kyrgyzstan's national broadcaster last year. It also marks the 25th anniversary of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, with Kyrgyzstan serving as this year's rotating chair. A painting by French master Paul Cézanne is now on display in Beijing as part of an exhibition exploring the dialogue between Chinese and Western modern art. The blue plate, created between 1879 and 1880, showcases Cézanne's innovative use of color and form, which helped shape modern art. The exhibition at Christie's Beijing also features works by influential Chinese artists, including Wu Guanzhong, Zhao Wuqi, and Wu Dayu, highlighting artistic exchanges between East and West. The exhibition will move to Shanghai this weekend before several works are offered at Christie's September auction. Vincent van Gogh's iconic painting Irises has been recreated on the traditional Chinese qipao made of brocade. The dress is among more than 130 works on display at a Beijing exhibition highlighting innovation in Chinese brocade craftsmanship. The exhibition showcases woven artworks and contemporary designs, showing how the ancient craft is being reimagined for modern times. With a history of over 2,000 years, Chinese brocade is one of the country's most sophisticated silk traditions. Nanjing Yunjing brocade was listed as UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2009. Now it's 57 minutes past the hour, checking the forecast for the day. Beijing will have light rain tonight and tomorrow. The low is 21 and is up to 24 on Friday. Shanghai will see light rain tonight and tomorrow with a low of 28 and a high of 32. Chongqing will have light rain tonight, tomorrow moderate rain with a low of 28 and a high of 36. Nanchang will be clear tonight, tomorrow thunder showers with a low of 28 and a high of 34. Lhasa will have showers tonight, easing to light tomorrow with a low of 12 and a high of 23. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will see light rain tonight and tomorrow. The low is 26 and it's up to 35 on Friday. Vientiane will have moderate rain tonight, easing to light tomorrow with a low of 24 and a high of 31. Phnom Penh will see light rain tonight and tomorrow with a low of 25 and a high of 32 degrees Celsius. That's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour, making news today. Rescue efforts are underway after a devastating flash flood and mudslide struck the China-Nepal border area. On behalf of the staff, this is Tianlu in the Chinese capital. Hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open the window to the world together.
The best military commander is not he who fights 100 battles and wins every one of them. The best military strategy does not lead to the desiccation of the enemy's capital city. Decoding the art of war will help you understand why there's no art in war and how Sun Tzu stayed undefeatable using the science of war, with fun stories and insightful breakdown of famous battles. Find Decoding the Art of War wherever you listen.
A poem for the Tibetan antelope, the gentle spirit of the Qinghai Seazon Plateau, spoken by voices from across the world. Every spring, female antelopes migrate hundreds of miles to Zhuonai Lake to give birth, as we build gentle passages for their journey.
Hello, little Tibetan antelope. Eyes opening to the light for the very first time.
To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower.
So much wonder calls for so much courage. But have no fear. The way home is right there, waiting for you.
From the snows of Kunlun to the winds of Tangula, the wilderness will teach me to be strong.
But the call of life itself never ceases.
A train runs toward the horizon. A road stretches through the wilderness.
The bridge that soars through the clouds is no barrier across the land, but a gateway to where I truly belong.
Tibetan antelope's hoofprints loosen the soil, letting snow melt sink into the earth.
Human presence passes through,
but we've never walked this land alone.